I've been fortunate enough to scale 3 companies from zero to over $1 million a year, and I did all 3 of these in less than 90 days. Now, if I had to grow my agency again, or if I was just getting started, this is exactly what I would do if I had to go from zero all the way to $1 million a year again. And in this video, I'll be condensing the last 5 years of my life, scaling 5 agencies for myself and over 300 of my clients' agencies into a simple 3-part framework that I would personally follow if I was to start my agency again. Okay, so first we're going to start with level number 1, which is going to be 0 to 10K a month. All right, so the first thing that we're going to need to do if we want to hit $10,000 a month as quickly and as easy as possible is to create an offer. It is common knowledge to know that offer is the most important part of your agency, especially when you're just starting and trying to hit your first $10,000 a month. Because if you do this wrong, it's going to become almost impossible to scale to $10,000 a month. You're going to send thousands of messages and nobody's going to care. Sales calls are going to become super hard to close. Maybe if you do close a client, it's going to be very hard to service them because most of the time the expectations that that client had are way off, and no matter what you do, they're still not happy. So how we create offers that make it easy and quickly for you to scale to $10,000 a month is by finding opportunities that are in high demand and low supply. So let me draw this out for you in 1 second here. Let's take a basic supply and demand chart, right? We got demand over here, which could otherwise be known as price, how much people are willing to pay. And we got supply over here, which could be otherwise known as competition. Now, if we draw a basic graph here, we can see that if we choose something that has a lot of supply, way over here, a lot of supply, well, that means the demand as to what we can charge is going to be super low. And that's why if you run Facebook ads for realtors, or you do a basic service that hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people are already doing, it seems as though the only way you can possibly get clients is if you offer free trial. Right now, although free trials are going to be a key part in this step 1 here in order to getting the first $10,000 a month, if you choose an industry and an offer like this, you're going to be stuck doing this forever until you have hundreds and hundreds of case studies and you can just be an authority. But that's a long, painful, and not so easy way to get you to your first $1 million a year. Now, conversely, if you pick something that's, let's say it's way over here, has very low supply, right, but very high demand, right, you can see what happens is that the price point that you would be able to offer would be super high, right? If you choose something with very low supply here, you're going to have very high demand over there. So how do we actually choose something that has high demand and low supply, and how do we find this? Well, now if we find something that's in high demand, it solves a painful problem. There's very few people offering to solve this problem for our target market, and there's 100,000 people in our target market. Well, then it becomes really easy to create an offer. So what do? Well, I take this prompt and I throw it into ChatyBT. And I have been able to create hundreds of offers just by using this simple prompt. Hey, ChatyBT, can you please find me a type of business that is in very high demand to have the problem that I already know how to solve? They have a big painful problem with, let's say, getting new clients. There's not many other agencies and freelancers offering to get clients for this type of business. And there's more than 100,000 of these businesses in Canada, US, Australia, and the United Kingdom. And then what ChatGPT will do is it's going to give you about 5 to 10 options at which you can ask it to rank them. And then from there, choose the one that resonates with you the most. Like, choose the one that you want to pursue the most. Maybe you have the most experience in, maybe you already know somebody in that niche, you're more interested in that niche, and there you go. And then from there, when it comes to actually creating the offer, well, it's super easy to do. Because the thing is that fundamentally, at its bare bones, if you want to create a good offer, is good offers happen when you sell stuff people actually want to buy. Imagine it's back in 2020 or 2021 and the entire world has just been shut down by COVID, but you just so happen to get access to hundreds of thousands of those masks that they made us wear. You could have terrible marketing. You could have an absolute terrible sales process, but if you just stood on the side of the road and you offered to sell those masks when they were all sold out, you would have printed money. Not because you have the best offer, not because you have the best discount strategy, the best pricing strategy, the best new mechanism, because you're selling things that people at that point in time, due to media, whatever reason, really wanted to buy. Okay. And that is why, instead of going down this rabbit hole of new mechanism, say this, say, like, just find something that people really want to buy, and creating the offer becomes super simple. Okay. So then once you have done that, you can just straight up offer it, right? An example of a really good offer that we created was basically just to get 3 deals over the span of 12 months, but for agricultural land brokers, right? We use the same service delivery that this person had by their skills that they developed in residential real estate. But after struggling with residential real estate, only doing about a couple $1,000s a month, we applied all their same skill set, found an industry that was in very high demand to get clients, but there was a lot of them and there was very few agencies and freelancers targeting them. So to them, basic Facebook ads was something brand new and revolutionary. We were able to take this agency from zero or a couple $1,000s a month to over $40,000 in just a couple of months, right? We changed nothing about the service delivery. We just now were selling something that was actually in high demand and our target market actually wanted to buy, as opposed to staying in an industry like the residential real estate where people didn't want to buy what he had to sell anymore because there was hundreds of thousands, if not millions of kids offering to do Facebook ads for real estate agents. So many of them been burned before. They were so high effort, so low likelihood of achievement, and it become impossible to scale in those industries. Once we have developed an offer, step number 2 is going to be build a portfolio, right? So in the beginning, we want to get some case studies, right? It's become so like, I'm not that good at sales. I'm not the best person at sales, but when I actually jump on the phone call to speak with somebody who's potentially interested in working with me, I close them probably about 50 to 60% of the time. Now, those are incredibly high numbers, especially for a lot of my deals that I take or right off cold traffic that we're running from ads. I don't know a lick about sales. Somebody tells me I need to think about it. I don't really know what to say. So then how am I able to close at such a high percentage? Well, because when somebody asks me, what do you do? I'll just like screen share. I'll just like show ad accounts. I'll just show clients high-risk account. Yeah, so we work with this client. Here's his high-risk account. And they can just see that, oh, this client spends $20K a month on ads and makes 200. Oh, these guys must know what they're doing. And then I just show them like 5 or 6 examples and they're like, okay, yeah, I believe you that you're able to get this result. You've proved it to me. I don't need a crazy objection handle overcome, and they're willing to work with me. So that's why I'm assuming in this scenario, you're brand new, starting off from scratch. And in this case, I recommend that you do some portfolio and test work to generate a case study. Now we want to do this by using a DM/cold email. And here's the script or the framework that you want to have. You want to basically offer your services in exchange for a testimonial, right? Because the thing is if you just offer a free trial, right? Or if you just say I'll do it for free, the prospect at the other end is going to assume that there's a catch, right? So they're going to be less likely to take you up on that offer. But if you share what the catch is, and that catch could easily be a testimony or a case study, right? Then it's like, okay, that makes sense. And then in addition to that, if people are still questioning, why are you making an offer so good? You're willing to do all this stuff for me. You're willing to get all these clients. You aren't paying for the result. You tell them that you are earlier on in the stage of your business. And so you have to come up with an offer that's so good that you can compete with all the other guys that have been doing this for 10s and 20s years, right? And then it's actually going to logically make sense to the prospect that you're reaching out to, and showing those damaging admissions that, hey, I'm just beginning, is going to increase the level of trust in that initial outreach messages, right? That damaging admission is going to make what you say next to be more believable. Hey, I am just starting my business. Damaging admission. Now with that damaging admission, what you say next is going to be more believable. But I have been working with a partner, with somebody else who has developed a system that's been able to get XYZ results. Now I would love to run this for you, fully install it for you. All you're going to have to do is take the sales calls that show up on your calendar completely for free for the next 2 weeks in exchange for testimonial. I'm doing this so I can build up my own portfolio, and I have to make an offer so good that people like you will want to work with me as opposed to working with all the other players in the space. Now it becomes a super logical, okay, this makes sense. I trust them. It sounds like he did add a little bit of social proof by leveraging out somebody's name. And if you don't have that, it could be by building the same system that some big company in their industry that they would know has recognized. You tie it to some social proof. And then from there, the next thing that we want to do is we want to send 1,000 plus messages. Here's where most of you guys fall short, is you might might do the offer part, you might come up with a script, but then you only send a dozen, maybe 100, maybe a couple of hundred of messages, and then you quit because you're not yet making $10,000 a month, which is completely ridiculous. The amount of volume that you actually need to get to 10, 50, or even $100,000 a month is usually 10 times more than you think it is. That's a big lesson that I've learned over the last couple of years scaling the business that I've scaled, is that everything that you are trying to do ends up being like 10 times harder than you thought it was. And I'm still learning this lesson to this day. When I first hit my $100,000 a month, my next goal was to hit my first $1 million a month. Right now, I'm sitting here about a year and a half later, still having not hit that goal, thinking, oh my God, this is 10 times harder than I thought it would be. Right now, we've grown. We've about 3 to 4x our company in the process. But I thought with the amount of work that we've had to put into 3 or 4x company, that amount of work was going to take us to $5 million a month. And that's just the natural cold hard truth of every single time we enter onto a new journey. But on the flip, let's look at it this way. Let's say we send 1,000 messages, right? Because we have such an irresistible front-end offer, we have a 30% response rate. From there, we get 300 leads, we'll call it that. Okay. Now let's say, again, because we have such an irresistible offer, we're able to schedule another 33%, which is very common, onto sales calls. So we have a 33% meeting book rate. That means we have 100 sales calls. Right now, because we're offering a free trial and we're going to jump on these calls and we're going to sell ourselves, not necessarily our prospect or our system or whatnot, because our system hasn't been proven. Let's say because it's irresistible, it's up front, right? Let's say like just on these basic numbers, you have a 33% close rate. And if you don't have a 33% close rate selling a free trial, you either need some like wild sales training, or you should probably just quit now because you're selling a free trial for 2 weeks. Right? Like you should be able to close 33% of people at minimum, right? So in this case, there's 33 clients right there. Right now, I know these are free trial clients, but even if you only upsell just a fraction of them, even if you only upsell just 30% of them, let's say 30%, take the upsell. That's 10 clients. Let's say you're charging just $2,000 a month. That's $20,000 a month right there. Okay. We've already doubled our goal. Now, when you look at this, yes, it's going to be a little bit of work. Yes, it's going to, offer free trials. You're going to be working for free, but in just 30 to 90 days of executing this, you can come out of this at $20,000 a month, making over $240,000 a year, which is right around the time you're going to begin to focus on getting into level 2, which is when we're going to go from about $10,000 a month to $30,000 a month. Now, the first thing that we need to do when we get to this stage is to restructure our offer to make it paid up front. So right now you're offering a free trial, you're offering to get results for free, you're justifying it by A, anchoring it to some third-party social proof, and B, using that damaging admission of saying why you're doing it in exchange for a case study and a testimonial. At this point, of the 30 people that you brought on, or the 10 people that you brought on, and I'm assuming you absolutely suck, maybe about 10 to 20% of them moved on to becoming a paid client. And at this point, now you're doing anywhere between 10 and 20K per month, right? Maybe another 10 to 20% of people didn't move on to becoming a paid client, but you still got results for them and they gave you a testimonial and a case study just like you agreed upon, right? So now at this point, you're sitting in a situation where you're doing about $10,000 to $20,000 a month, and you probably have another 5 to 10 case studies that you can put inside of your marketing to show people that they have actual reason to believe that you're going to be able to get them the result. So now simply, what do we charge and how do we offer our upfront pricing? Well, the golden rule of thumb that I like to follow when it comes to coming up with my pricing strategy for clients is to be able to deliver a 5-to-1 lifetime gross profit to cost of acquisition for them. So what does that mean, for example? Well, let's say I make my clients $100,000 and I make them spend about $3,000 a month on ads, and I charge $10K for 90 days. So if we look at their total investment, we'll call it they spend $20,000, right? And in this case, they spend $20,000. They made $100,000. that would fit my criteria. So the way that I like to structure this and the way that I like to calculate this is I ask myself, okay, if I run my clients' marketing, if I do their client acquisition for 3 months, how many clients am I going to get them, right? So that's step one. So let's say, for example, you get them, 10, right? For example. Then the next question is, okay, how much is each client worth to the business over their entire life? Okay. So what is the average lifetime value? Right now, let's say, for an example, it's a landscaping company, for example. You might be thinking, damn, well, each client that I get them is only worth $150. This isn't going to work. That's not true. And that isn't the case, though, because if you look at a landscaping company, let's say, for one grass cut, one landscaping job, whatever, general spring cleanup type thing, maybe it's only $150. However, if that client then on average stays on board for 2 years, now the average lifetime value is 10 grand. 20 grand and could be even more. And so let's say in this case the average lifetime value is $2,000, and we say 10,000 times 2, that means total projected rev equals 20k. Then you ask, how much do I need to spend on ads? And let's say it's minus 3k, right? And then it's like, okay, then what can I charge to still deliver a 5-to-1, right? In this case, we'd only be able to charge 2k to deliver them a 5-to-1, which isn't ideal. And if you're not happy with this number, right, the solution isn't to charge less. The solution is to figure out how we can make that number go up, right? And so how could we make that number go up? Well, one of the things that we could do is we could install a referral program, right? In that case, where every single client that they come in, or 50% of clients, will also bring in a referral, because you have such a banger referral offer that you give out to your clients. What that means is, let's say Jimmy gets his grass cut. At the end of the grass cutting, Jimmy's offered to get his next grass cut for free if he refers him to a neighbor. All he has to do is make the introduction. And then when you have a system like that, this number on the same amount of ad spend goes from 10 to maybe it goes to 18, right? Well, now we do 18 times 20, and we're looking at 36K on that same amount of ad spend. And now we're going to be able to charge about 5K and still deliver that 5-to-1, right? Just by adding a referral program in place, we were able to over double the price that we're allowed to offer and still be able to deliver a 5-to-1. All right. So once we have done that in place, the next thing that we're going to need is scale appointment setting. And so really, when it comes to this case, it's just going to be identifying every single manual task that we're currently doing in order to set appointments, and either finding a way to completely automate it using automations and AI, or hiring somebody to do it for us, right? And so let's say you're still doing DM outreach, or you're still doing cold emails, or whatever the case may be, right? In those cases, you look at, first of all, making a detailed standard operating procedure of every single thing that you do in order to send these DMs and in order to send these emails. Once you have that in place, you then go out and you look for virtual assistants to come in and do that work for you. Then from that case, it just becomes a numbers game, right? If I want to send 1,000 messages a day, right, and each VA is capable of spending 200 per day, I just need to hire 5 VAs, and then I will be able to send my 1,000 messages per day. And similar to that, number 3 is going to be systemizing delivery by doing the exact same thing that we just talked about with the appointment setting, right? So again, what we want to do is we want to write down every single manual thing that we're currently doing in order to service our clients. And then for each one that's very low leverage, right? For each one that, anybody could do, because there's a lot of things like setting up Go High Level or loading ads or, things like that, like pretty much anybody could do. We want to create a detailed standard operating procedure for each one of those tasks, and then find somebody ideally for 1/4 of our own current hourly rate. You figure out your hourly rate, dividing by, how much you make every single week, dividing that by 40, as in if you were to work 40 hours. I understand that you might work more than 40 hours, but if you are, that means you're working overtime or something like that, right? Ideally, you should be able to get everything done in 40 hours, right? Or unless you're pushing for scale. I get what you're saying here, but just trust me, this is the best way about looking at this. And so from there, let's say you get that, writing ad copy, setting up Go High Level, et cetera, are the things that you could easily delegate. Again, go out and you find these people to come in and systemize that. Now, at this case, you should probably have 2 to 3 people on your front end helping you get more appointments. And then also maybe 2 to 3 people on your back end helping you streamline it so you can focus on just the highest leverage activities on both the front end, i.e. the closing, partnership generation, and the highest leverage activities on the back back end, i.e. coming up with overall strategy, having monthly client one-on-one meetings, etc., etc. So your key action items for step number 2 is going to be to first recreate your offer. Second is going to be to build appointment setting systems and infrastructures for scale. And third is going to be to build those same systems, but then for delivery by delegating all of the lowest leverage tasks that you're doing to work with clients to virtual assistants or junior marketers and so on. All right, now last but not least, level number 3 is going to be going from about 30K a month to our golden 8333 a month. So in order to go from $30,000 a month to our first $1 million per year run rate, there's 3 real key things that we're doing. And the first one is we need to, at this point, remove ourselves from sales. So in this case, you're going to have proven product market fit. You're going to have a sales process that already worked. That's how you got to $30,000 a month. Now, the next thing that we need to do is just to, again, standardize that process, write down your scripts, create a detailed SOP on everything that you have been doing to close those deals, and then hire a remote commission-only closer to come in and close those deals for you. Now, we have hired dozens and dozens and dozens of closers at my agencies for clients. We even do placements for closers. And one of the things that I can strongly recommend is that you work with a recruitment agency on this. Finding a closer in today's current market is incredibly tough. And a lot of times, if you actually want to do this properly, you're going to have some sort of inside knowledge. You're going to have to be a part of some secret or more exclusive network where you can actually access the top tier talent, because a lot of talent actually comes by poaching people from other offers. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but it's the cold hard truth. If you are going onto Indeed to get your closers, well, guess what? Only shit closers are sitting around on Indeed looking for a job opportunity. The closers that are good, the closers that you actually want coming in to work for your company, the closers that are actually going to take your company to $1 million a year, they're probably already working on other offers because they're good closers and they can get work. They can sell themselves. Like, do you understand what I'm going at here? And then in addition to that, from what I've personally experienced myself, is that in order to do the work to find a really good closer and to poach them, it's going to take you dozens and dozens and dozens of hours and dozens of interviews as well. That's why there's a lot of companies out there where for $3,000 to $5,000, they'll do all of it for you, or they have their own private network of elite closer. And so instead of, spending dozens and dozens of hours, now you're getting to the point where legitimately time is money, right? And it becomes much more valuable for you to just send $3,000 to $5,000 to a recruitment company and they go out and they find the closer for you, as opposed to you spending dozens and dozens of hours yourself trying to do it. Now, the next thing here is to then also remove yourself from delivery, right? Now, in this case, what I recommend that you do is that you pay top dollar to get top talent that can do all of the above within your delivery. And so what I mean by that is, one of the things that we've learned is that you're better off having really, really good people that are able to do the work for the client, handle communication with the client, and actually be able to almost kind of like grow their own agency within your business, right? So let's say you do cold email and paid ads like we do. Our head of marketer, Xander, it's almost like he's kind of like growing his own paid ads, meta ads agency inside of our business, right? And he's able to do that because Xander's an intelligent, skilled individual who has the capabilities to do that. I've seen disaster stories where people have a marketer from the Philippines and then they have a CSM from, Egypt or some other part of the world. Communications all over the place, like the CSM's talking to them, and then it's just like every time the marketer does something, he has to go to the CSM, he goes to the client, and then back to the CSM, like all that kind of stuff. And we just want to remove all of that communication, because at this point, communication is going to be the most important part of your agency, right? Earlier, before, it was fine to get VAs because all those VAs were just freeing up your time, right? But now, essentially, what we need to do is we need to replace you by finding somebody who we're going to have to pay top dollar to come in, replace your role. And they can still have a few of those VAs as assistants to them, but they're going to be the one that's communicating the client. They're going to be the one that's coming up with the client strategy and all of that and so on. Now, similar to that sales role, again, it's going to be a smart thing to consider of looking for a recruitment agency to find these people for you. The top marketers, the really good people that are going to be working with clients, that are probably already working with clients. They're probably not sitting around on Upwork in order to find their next job. And so what we want to do in this case is, if you have access to these private networks and whatnot, do there. If not, I strongly recommend that you go out to a recruitment agency and you say, hey, here are my criteria, here's what I'm looking for, here's the salary, and then pay them to just do this for you. Now, the third and final thing that's going to take you to $83,333 a month, which is our first 7 figures, is to run paid ads, right? By far, I know a ton of people who've been able to take their cold email or their cold outbound or their cold calling, whatever the case may be, from $0 to $30,000 a month. But time and time again, it holds true that the easiest, fastest, and most reliable way to go from that $30,000 a month range to $83,000 a month, which is that first 7 figures, is to run paid ads. Right? Because think about it. Let's say you have a team of 2 cold callers, right? And that those 2 cold callers have taken you to $30,000 a month, right? Well, in order to get to $83,000 a month, theoretically, you're probably going to have to hire another 4 or 5 cold callers, and you're going to have a manager just to manage those cold callers, and it becomes an entire organizational mess. Where if you want to do the same thing with ads, you literally just go into Facebook Ads Manager and adjust your budget. And then instead of trying to manage all these people and dealing all of these things on the front end marketing becomes so simple, and literally one person can do it. I am the one-man show at my own company, and I even am able to also run the marketing for about 4 or 5 clients personally myself, right? Just because of how simple and easy it is to scale using paid ads. Okay, so the key action items that you can have here to go from $30K a month to your first 7 figures is going to be to remove yourself from sales by hiring setters and closers, to remove yourself from delivery, and then focusing on launching and scaling paid ads. So like I mentioned earlier, cold email is one of the cheapest and can be one of the most powerful ways, especially if you're going from that $0 to $30,000 a month. But in this video, I obviously didn't have enough time to go over everything because I was giving you a high level overview of what I do if I was to go from $0 to $1 million a year again from scratch. So click this video right here to check out the next one where I go through every single step on how to set up your cold email and how to have AI actually do a lot of it for you so you can start to get 30 to 50 appointments per month on complete autopilot. Now, if you're actually serious about scaling your agency this year, I strongly recommend that you check that video out. Good luck, and I'll see you there.